All right, welcome back with another preview here, this time for the upper division's fourth week of Dota. Of course, same thing for the lower division. Some regions have already played the starting point of their fourth week. Also, I'm not going to be including my fantasy picks in this video because that fourth week has already started. My apologies for missing the fantasy on that point. I thought they were going to be for January, but I missed out. But don't worry, my next preview for the upper division will have them included. So again, sorry for that. For anyone who missed it, I apologize. So starting off with China, who finally gets their upper division underway. I'm super excited because there's going to be a ton of Dota coming up from China's upper division and a lot of really good teams, and I'm really excited to see how they do, especially some of the teams that went through some pretty significant changes like RNG, like eHome, and like Vici Gaming. It'll be interesting to see how they end up shaking out in this new season. Starting off on Monday the 3rd, so these guys get their season underway a much earlier than everyone else. Well, actually not much earlier, just a couple days, but regardless, on the 3rd, they have eHome versus Phoenix playing at 1 p.m. Following that, we have LGD versus Aster, which is a pretty entertaining series I'm going to be excited for. The only reason I didn't have this series as my match of the week for China is because I also have another one for LGD here as well, and I didn't want to have both of my matches of the week here be LGD matches. And for China, I have 2 of them just because there are twice the amount of matches for China as there are for other regions. For Tuesday the 4th at 1 p.m., we have Vici Gaming up against LBZS. Of course, they are a team coming in from the lower division. They did go through some pretty significant roster changes, so it's not exactly the same team, but we'll end up seeing how their roster ends up doing. 4 p.m., we have LGD against Phoenix, another team coming in from the lower division, and similar to LBZS, went through pretty significant changes as well. Not the same team at all. And then at 7 p.m., my first match of the week for China, which is going to be IG versus RNG. RNG is a team that I have a lot of expectations for. They've got a pretty fun-looking roster that I'm really excited to see how it does. And yeah, all around, I'm going to be looking out for this match for sure. Then on Friday the 7th, we have at 1 p.m. IG versus eHome. Again, eHome going through their fair share of roster changes as well. And then at 4 p.m., Aster versus Vici. And then finally, on Sunday the 9th, we end off the first week of Chinese Upper Division Dota with IG versus Phoenix. At 4 p.m., we have RNG versus LBZS. And then finally, to end things off, another series I'm super excited to watch, LGD versus Vici Gaming. Again, this is not the same Vici Gaming that we saw last season. They went through a pretty significant change in their roster, which was really unfortunate to see because of how well they did last year. But regardless, it should be real fun to see how this new roster does. So yeah, you guys can let me know which series you're most looking forward to here. Do you think LGD is still the strongest team in this region? Obviously, we haven't seen them play since TI, so there's not really much to suggest otherwise. But you guys can let me know all of your hot takes in the comments down below. Moving on to Southeast Asia now, things kick back off on Wednesday the 5th at 3 p.m. local time. We have T1 up against OB Neon. Not to call this one too early, but this should be a T1 win, and this will, of course, start to project them towards number 1 in the division. They are currently chasing Boom. Of course, Boom has played more series than them, so T1 has a few games in hand, but they've got to start winning those games, and starting off against OB Neon should be a nice place for them to start. Following that, later that day, we have my match of the week at 6 p.m., which is going to be SMG up against Execration. Not a series that at the start of the season I would have been looking forward to as much as I am now, especially with how well Execration's been playing lately. And sure, they've been playing against some of the weaker teams in the division, like OB Neon, like TNC Predator, but they're getting those wins and they're looking good doing it. And SMG is a team that has been competitive with some of the best teams in here. I'm really excited for these two teams to clash. On Thursday the 6th, we have Fnatic up against Motivate, which should also be a pretty fun series. Both of these teams having a little bit of an unstable start to the season, especially with some of the expectations that may have been had with them, especially Motivate. I think there was a lot of expectation for them to do very well in this tour, but since the first week, they've kind of been on a bit of a downward spiral. They're looking to turn things around. And then on Saturday the 8th, we end things off at 3 p.m. with TNC Predator up against Boom. We can all start praying for TNC Predator that they don't get smacked too badly in this series. And then following that, we have SMG up against OB Neon, and this should be a nice couple points, or a nice point for SMG, and start to propel them towards one of the major slots, as SEA has 3 up for grabs. It's looking like T1 and Boom should get the first 2, but that third one is still up for grabs for one of these other teams that are chasing right now. It's going to be really interesting to see how this first tour ends up concluding for Southeast Asia. Who do you guys think ends up taking it? Do you think if SMG wins both their series this week, do you think they're going to likely be the third team to take it? You guys can let me know all of that in the comments down below, including what you guys think is going to be your match of the week and which one you're most excited to watch. Moving on to Eastern Europe now, starting things off on Thursday the 6th, we have a match at 5 p.m. local time. We have Team Spirit up against AS Monaco Gambit. Gambit kind of having a little bit of a dip since their start of the season, whereas Spirit has looked pretty good. They're kind of in the same boat as T1 in SEA, where they're not in first place of their division, but they also have not played as many matches as the team that they're following. And so Spirit looking to close the gap a little bit. They do have 2 series this week, and I would not be surprised if they end up winning both of them. Following that, later that day, we have Na'Vi versus Hellraisers. This should be a really, really fun match, as Hellraisers has been a very pleasant surprise. They've been doing very, very well for themselves, and Na'Vi has been a pretty solid team. They have had their moments where they've looked a little shaky against some of the weaker teams, but they do still win those series, and so yeah, this is going to be a real fun one to watch. On Friday the 7th, 2 p.m., we have Virtus.Pro up against Empire. Virtus.Pro needs to win the series. It should be a clean win for them, as Empire is one of the weakest teams in this division, but Virtus.Pro can't afford to lose any more series if they want to make it to the major. And keep in mind, one of their series that they have yet to play is against Team Spirit, so they need to start racking up these wins. And then finally, ending things off in Eastern Europe on the 9th, we have Unique up against PuckChamp. Again, Unique very much having a disappointing season so far, and PuckChamp kind of the opposite. They're having a very, very good tour so far, when it maybe wasn't as expected for them. And finally, ending things off with my match of the week, we have Team Spirit up against Na'Vi for each of their second series of the week. Again, Team Spirit looking as good as they have, and Na'Vi being one of the more consistent teams in the division when it comes to actually having a pretty decent score, but not being one of the best teams, not being one of the worst teams. This should be a fun series to watch all around. And you guys can let me know which series you're most looking forward to here. Do you think Virtus.Pro ends up making it to the major? It's a question I've been asking of you guys a lot lately, especially in my Eastern European review that I did just a few days ago. If you haven't seen that, feel free to check it out. But right now, they need to win every single series that they have left if they want to make it. They can't afford to lose anymore. So we'll see how it goes. Now moving on to Western Europe, we only have 3 series left, as of course we had our first day of this week taking place back in December. Starting things off on Wednesday the 5th at 2 p.m. we have Team Nigma up against Alliance. This is my match of the week. Not because it is necessarily 2 of the best teams in this division playing against each other, but because the winner of this series will likely be the one that avoids relegation. For whoever, both of these teams are near the bottom. Whoever ends up losing the series is very likely going to be getting booted down to the lower division, with how big these teams are when it comes to fan base, when it comes to player names, and how long they've been playing together. It's pretty surprising to see. It's going to be pretty surprising to see one of these teams in the lower division. I ran a poll asking you guys who you thought was going to be finishing in the lower division, and the majority of you guys thought Alliance, which means that in this case, you guys think that Nigma should be winning this series. But this is definitely one that I'm going to be watching out for and keeping my eye on. And then finally, for Western Europe, ending things off on Saturday the 8th, we have Team Tundra up against Cool Guys. And Cool Guys have been 0-4 so far. They haven't won a series yet, but they showed up against their series against OG that they're not necessarily an easy win. And so Tundra might have to work for this one, especially with the couple of losses that Tundra have had back-to-back in this tour. They did just win the OGA Dota Pit, and they looked really good doing it, but while they were doing that, they were losing matches in the DPC. So they're looking to turn things around a little bit here. And finally, ending things off, to end things off at 5 p.m. we have OG up against Team Tickles. Both of these teams are tied for second place right now. They are not teams that I was expecting to do so well off the bat, but it's been a pleasant surprise, especially OG, which is how confident they've been playing lately, and I'm really excited to see how this one ends up going. It's very likely that these 2 teams do attend the first major unless they take a major dip, and whoever wins this one will very likely end up finishing near the top of the division as well. So yeah, we'll end up seeing how it goes. You guys can let me know. Do you think Alliance avoids relegation? Do they beat Team Nigma? They kind of need to beat them here, but the same thing goes for Nigma. They need to win this series if they want to avoid relegation. We'll have to see how it goes. Moving on to North America now, things start back up on Wednesday the 5th. At 3 p.m. local time, we have Wildcard Gaming up against Black and Yellow. Wildcard Gaming is another one of those teams that has been a very pleasant surprise. I had them pegged to finish near the bottom of their division, and they have really turned things around. And it's not like it has been exactly smooth sailing for them either. the start of their season, their first series that they had played was really rough, especially with Sammy Boy moving to position 5. But since then, it really feels like the team and Sammy Boy himself have really been working on their game, bringing themselves together. They've really tightened up their drafting and their gameplay in total, and they've looked like a pretty solid team. Definitely not one of the top contenders in the division, but they're definitely looking like one of the teams that should be avoiding relegation this time around. Following that, 6 p.m., we have Arkosh versus 2Base. Both of these teams near the bottom. They desperately need these wins, especially Arkosh, who has a little bit more hope for dodging relegation. Simply 2Base right now has yet to get a win, and starting off against Arkosh is going to be pretty necessary for them if they don't want to get booted down. And then on Saturday the 8th, we have at 3 p.m. Evil Geniuses up against 4 Zoomers, which is a pretty exciting match that I'm really excited for, but it's not my match of the week. The one that is my match of the week comes right after that, and that is going to be Quincy Crew versus Undying. Both of these teams are 4-0 so far. I think if I had to give the edge to one team, it would be Undying, just because of the fact that they've been together for a little bit longer. They have looked a little bit more dominant in their wins, and they really know how to play from behind really well. But I wouldn't put it past Quincy Crew if they managed to sneak away with the win. They have finished first place in North America before. I wouldn't be surprised to see them do it again. But yeah, that's definitely my match of the week, the one that I'm most excited for in North America, as likely whoever wins that series ends up finishing first place in the division, which, if you ask some of the pro players, might not be as good as finishing second when it comes to major slotting. Finally, ending things off with South America on Thursday the 6th. At 6 p.m., we have Beast Coast up against No Ping. Beast Coast looking to continue their spree of success that they've been having. They have yet to play up against Thunder Predator, which is going to be a very fun series when it does take place, as they have both looked like the best teams in South America. Whereas No Ping kind of residing near the middle of the pack, kind of what we've been expecting from them. Not exactly having the best success, but still keeping their head above water so far. Following that, on Friday the 7th at 3 p.m., we have my match of the week, and that is Thunder Predator versus King of Kings. King of Kings have really been a surprise to me. Maybe not for some fans of the region that knew who they were beforehand, but with just the fact that they've been able to stay competitive with some of the best teams in the region, including their series against Beast Coast, taking some matches off of some really good teams, and overall propelling themselves near the top of the division. They're currently third place at 3-1, with that only loss being to Beast Coast. I'm really excited to see how this series up against Thunder Predator goes. And then following that, we have Beast Coast up against Infamous. Infamous, again, another team like No Ping that's hovering near the middle of the pack. They are kind of doing pretty well. They are 2-2 so far, sitting in 4th place. But overall, I think Beast Coast should have this one. And then finally, on Sunday the 9th, we end things off with Lava versus No Ping at 3 p.m. And then Hikori versus SG Esports at 6 p.m. Both of those teams having a pretty rough season so far. SG having the worst of it, as they are 0-4 to this point. But yeah, hopefully they can manage to pick up a win and try and dodge relegation. But with only 3 series remaining, it's looking pretty unlikely. So starting off against Hikori would be a good place to start, as Hikori has also looked like one of the weaker teams in this division this season. But yeah, you guys can let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below. As always, feel free to subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Again, I do a preview for the upper division and lower division every single week. Usually my upper division includes fantasy picks, which I, again, apologize for not including in this video. I thought it was for January, but it was actually for back in December when we had the start of week 4. So again, apologies for that. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow with another video.